Hello, everyone. Good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are. Welcome to another edition of the Alkebulan Awakening series. As usual, as normal, my name is Ola Dele Dosumo. I'm the co-founder of Emerging Alkebulan, and we're about decolonizing the minds and awakening the consciousness of our African people in the diaspora and on the continent. Nduku.
Habari gani, karibuni, asanteni for being with us here today. The name is Nduko, again, an African woman, just in case it wasn't obvious from my skin. I am an African woman reclaiming our narrative, telling our story from our perspective, countering the false narrative that Western media has propagated and Western culture has propagated against Africans and Africa for too long.
Okay, we got a guest here, Nana Ofori-Atta Oguntola. She's going to introduce herself, but she's got a book that she's going to talk about the 20 African Queens that every young girl should know about. That's the title of the book. But I'll let her dive into it. So she's going to introduce herself and she's going to give us the next 20, 30 minutes talking about the book. So stay tuned. If you have any questions, any comments, anything that you want to add, just put in the chat as always, and then we can go back to that after once we've done the presentation. So Nana, over to you, my dear sister.
All right. Good afternoon, everybody, and thank you so much for this invitation. My name is Nana Ofori-Atta Oguntola, as has been said, and I am a filmmaker, I am an author, and I'm a community activist or community leader. I do a lot of events in Milton Keynes, especially around the Black communities here. So before I start talking to you about my book, I'm going to tell you a little bit about why I am a storyteller. I grew up, I'm half Ghanaian and half Gambian. My father is Ghanaian, I was born in Ghana. I grew up in the Gambia. And then I went to Ghana around 1989. It was around the time when there was so much war and famine. It was famine in the Horn of Africa, Somalia, Ethiopia, and so on, especially Somalia. And so when I was watching TV, all I could see was images of Somalian women and their babies emaciated, hungry, dying, starving. Those was all I saw. And then one day, my stepfather was a diplomat. He was working for the WHO. And one day, a Somalian woman came into the house, and she didn't look like the woman that I saw on TV. She looked really well dressed, really well put together. She spoke well. She was highly intelligent. She was a diplomat. And for me, that was a moment of cognitive dissonance. It was at 18. That was when I first, or maybe, yeah, that was the first time I realized, okay, it's about who's telling the story, who has the power to tell the story, who's telling the story, what's their perspective. All right, that's what's the story they want to tell. And so I realized, first of all, at that moment, okay, I wanted to tell stories that were not necessarily the mainstream stories, the stories that weren't being told, because I realized there was another story, there was another voice. The other time I realized I wanted to be a storyteller was, if you all remember the song by the hungry song, do they know it's Christmas? The gift aid song or whatever. Do they know it's Christmas?
Oh, yeah.
Gambia, I was singing that song, do they know it's Christmas time? But I thought it was for the other Africans, the other poor people, maybe up country or in another country somewhere where they were starving. They might not know it's Christmas, because I knew it was Christmas. We had our Christmas tree, we went Christmas caroling, we had masquerades. It was fun. It was a fun time for us. And then I came to England, and then I realized, oh no, actually the song is about you. And, I realized, okay, this is the story that has been told about me as a person before they even speak to me, before they even know me. The story is that you know what's Christmas. I am so desperate and poor, and that I don't have a Christmas tree, and I don't have a present under the tree. And it was this one single image of Africa, and I realized again the importance of storytelling. Who's telling my story for me? What's the perspective they're telling it from? And also, a third thing I'd say is, when I went back to the Gambia, because I studied in England and I went back in 95, and we used to do documentaries, and we had a couple of clients, international clients, and they asked us to do a documentary about the church, the Methodist church. And my family, we are Creoles, I don't know, returned slaves. We returned to the Gambia ages ago. And so we're kind of Methodist. And so my family, the people around me, they go to church and they're wearing hats and stockings and dresses and shoes and handbags. And when we put that in the documentary, they made us go back and change it and sent us to the rural areas and said, this is not the image we want to present. So once again, reinforcing that whole story of who's telling the story and what is the narrative that you want to push. So that's just so when I went back home, I did do things around retelling stories and things like that. But coming to my book, I don't know, it's called 20 African Queens that every young girl should know about. You can see it.
Yeah.
I met one of the queens. Her name is Ya Asantewa. She's a Ghanaian queen. I'm sure people would know her. She's very famous because she had that speech that she made to the men when she was going to war. This is her. I met her when I was 18 years old. That was the first time I knew we even had African queens, which is really terrible because I grew up in the Gambia. And yet, when I was going to school, I knew about European queens. I knew Queen Elizabeth and Henry and his wives. And I didn't know we had queens in Africa until I was 18 years old and I met her. And when I met her, when I learned about her, I thought, I want to do something with her story. I want to tell her story, but I don't know how yet. And it's taken over 20 years now. And as I started to research her recently, a few years ago, about 3 years ago, I got back. I'm like, I want to do something with Asantewa's story. Then I started finding out about other queens. And I found 20 of them. And I was just fascinated. I was blown away by the stories. And it's like, well, where have these been all our lives? Like, why are these not the stories that we hear about in school? Why are they not in our history books? Why aren't we taught this? And I thought, I want my daughter, who's 14, to have access to these queens. I wanted to know that they exist before she gets to 18 or before she gets to my age, which is quite old, right? I want her to know, and I want other people to know her, to know them. So I have some favorites. Well, I have some really interesting ones that I found. I mean, some of these people, you know them yourselves. I mean, this is Queen of Saba. This woman is famous. You know her. She went to meet King Elizabeth. She's Makeda, the Queen of Saba.
You push it up a little bit. Yeah. Okay, that's it. Yeah. Yeah.
Up in Yoruba culture, in Arabic culture, she's called Queen Bilqis. She's in the Bible. This woman, when you look at her story in the Bible, for example, she was so rich. She took gifts to the richest man in the world. So you cannot tell me that African queens were poor, and you can't tell me they weren't educated. She was highly, highly educated. She was so educated that she was like, I hear there's a man smarter than me. Let me go find him. That was how smart she was, right? Because you don't just get up and say, I want to go find out about it. I want knowledge unless you have knowledge and unless you're seeking knowledge, right? If you don't have knowledge or you're not seeking it, then it's not what you do. But she was. And then, by meeting her here, I think, and it being reinforced that she's an African queen for me, just told me a brand new narrative about African women and African queens, that they were already intelligent, they were already educated, they were already strong, already bold, already rich. And that was fascinating for me. I mean, these queens here, I'll give you another story. Let me just go through of course, yeah, Asante was my favorite queen. Let me just mention her before I come back to the Candaces of M. She's my favorite queen because she's the first queen I met, right? And her story, she was a queen mother, and the British were trying to take away the golden stool. And of course, the Ashantis, they believe that the souls of the ancestors and all of, Ashanti, that is in that stool. So you can't have it. And she was fighting that battle to preserve the stool. And she made this famous speech, and which I love to read, so bear with me. And she said, now I see that some of you fear to go forward to fight for our king. In the brave days of Osai Tutu, Okomfo Anoche, and Opoko Ware, chiefs would not sit down to see their king be taken away without firing a shot. No European could have dared to speak to chiefs of Asante in the way the governor spoke this morning. Is it true that the bravery of Asante is no more? I cannot believe it. It cannot. I must say this. You, the men of Asante, will go forward. Then we will. We, the women, will. I shall call upon my fellow women. We will fight. We will fight till the last of us falls in the battlefields. woman of courage, right? Woman of, she was
Wow.
fearless, she was strong, she had a vision, she understood power, and she led armies, you know, inspiring. And I've always wanted to tell a story, and I'm so, you know, grateful for the opportunity to do that now, to be able to share this story with young girls, especially young girls who feel like, oh, you know, westernization, or people say because you come to England or because you're westernized, that's why you're bold. It isn't so. Our women, our queens from the past, from long ago, have always been leaders, have always been warriors, have always led armies. It's nothing new. I'll show you later a woman who's in this. I mean, some of these women taught their people to farm and to hunt and to change the whole narrative. And this is not a man's purview. We can all do it. Um, this is another queen. This is actually the Candaces of Mero, right? So the Candaces of Mero is a collective of queens, and they're known as the Kantike, and it did not represent a single queen, but a title. And there's quite a few of them featured in the book here, which you can read about later on. But each of
Yep.
them
Yep.
was completely different. And one of them is really famous because she did the war. She fought against the Romans and lost an eye. But one of the other queens is actually found again in the Bible. If you read, there's an apostle or a disciple called Philip, and he was going somewhere. The Bible says the Spirit took him, and he met a eunuch, and that eunuch was a eunuch of the Queen of Meroe. So it's not only just that these women maybe exist in folklore, or somebody said, they exist in such a way that there's evidence all over in
Mm.
in other literary texts supporting their existence, and that they did. And you know, we met this queen who was the Candace of Meroe. So really interesting, these ones as well. Um, of course, we have Queen Nandi, who was the mother of Shaka Zulu, and whose influence, you know, led and Shaka Zulu. And I also have here Queen Cleopatra. Everybody knows Cleopatra in terms of her relationship with Julius Caesar and Mark Antony, but she was actually an extremely intelligent woman and an extremely strategic leader, right? So we have Cleopatra, and we have Queen Moremi, and she was the queen.
Moremi. Okay.
Well, well, she was, and you know, she helped her tribe as well. Oh my gosh! I mean, I have also the Queen of Maced- Macedonia. No, not Macedonia. What is it? Madagascar. Um, and she was a very, another woman who did not like the advance of colonialism and the advance of slavery into her nation, and she really stood up and she really fought, uh, and also she was very much into expanding her empire in terms of trade and in terms of building, you know.
Mm.
uh it is amazing to learn about this woman. For me, like, they did this because the way that I grew up and the knowledge I had and the understanding I had was, we didn't do anything until the Europeans came. We didn't build
Mm.
anything until the Europeans came. And so learning about these queens, they did it already. They did it before the Europeans came, and they fought the Europeans to ensure that they kept doing it. And then I've also got Queen Idia Ayuba of Benin, the Benin Empire, very powerful woman. Queen Hanbei of the Dahomey Amazons, powerful woman. Um, so Queen Hanbei, she ruled the mighty kingdom of Dahomey. The Dahomey kingdom, of course, you know, was a powerful region. Um,
You
and
said you said
and
you
she
had a favorite one. You said you had a favorite one, and it's okay to have a favorite one because it's human nature, right? You have a
yeah.
flower that you like more than the other. You have a scent that you like more than the other. You have a food that you prefer more than the other. There's nothing wrong with that. You can love all of them, but there's one that you connect with more. Which one is it, and why? And also, can you please read us something without giving up your whole book from her chapter to tell us about her, please?
Okay,
Nice.
so I'm going to come to that, but I just want to quickly say Queen Hanbei is the, you know, the Black Panthers. the story is based on her warriors,
Yeah, yeah,
right? So
yeah.
Yeah,
We
Mama
can
Kanyi,
relate.
Mama
also,
We can
Kanyisile,
relate.
Mama Kanyisile is not happy
yeah,
that they flipped it into the Black Panther movie. They because they contort the story instead of what it really was. It was a
yeah,
woman who was
yeah.
powerful that she became. Yeah.
Yeah, she was. And also the Woman King by Viola Davis is based on her. But the thing about it is that you can it's bringing these narratives out of the dark or out of quiet or we're into mainstream, and then you can then
Mm,
go and find out a little more about who they really are and learn more
yeah.
about her. So my favorite, like I said, I'm probably rushing because I don't know, but my favorite, like I said, is Ya Asantewaa. She was the Ghanaian queen and that led her people against the British when they were trying to take away the golden stool. Because at that
Mm,
time, they had already sent the king into exile in Seychelles. They were trying to take over the Gold Coast, the Ashanti Empire, particularly because they were very strong. But she fought. She's the one. I read her speech when she said to the men, "If you, the men of Ashanti, will not go forward, then we, the women, will." And she's my favorite, not just because I'm inspired by her story that she dared to say, "Okay, look, if you guys don't go, if you men don't stand up, we will. We will go fight until we all die. We don't mind. We will put ourselves forward." And she was captured at the end and sent to the Seychelles. But she's my favorite because she's the first queen I met. That's all. That's the only reason that she's my favorite, because she's the first queen I met, and she's the one that started this journey of research and finding out about these queens. Um, and of course, there are Egyptian queens here. Let me see. There's Nefertiti, and the way I've written the book, and then I've got another South African queen. She's the Rain Queen. I think you
yeah,
know about her now,
yeah,
Queen
yeah,
of
yeah,
Macedonia, Dodie. And of course, we got Zinga Bande. You can't have African queens without Queen Zinga. And
yeah.
I was about to ask, where was she?
yes, and Netflix have also done a film about her.
Mm,
And then we
mhm,
have Queen Humza of Rwanda as well.
mhm, mhm.
Yeah, I mean these women, they fought wars, they built industry, they changed narratives around women, what the power of what the roles of women are. Women can hunt,
Mm,
women, and some of them were very strict in terms of women abuse, like female abuse, assault. You couldn't, be violent towards women. Some of them gave up their lives. I mean, just a fascinating, you know, discovery of woman and power and retelling the story of Africa. And there's also Queen Aminatu of Zaozu in northern Nigeria.
yeah,
And there's a
been up
film
to
about her by Netflix as well. So that is it. I think if you want to ask me a question, that would remind me of something to say. And this is
okay,
Queen Dodie. She's a Ga queen of Ghana.
okay,
Yeah. And you won't believe it. I discovered another queen last week
okay.
after writing the book. She's Senegalese, she's Senegambian. And it's very interesting because when I was researching the book, I specifically looked for a Gambian queen because obviously I'm from the Gambia. So I was hoping I couldn't find her. But last week I found one. Somebody just shared something on Facebook that I'm going to research. And her name is Queen Datiyala of the Kingdom of Walu, who fought against the French colonialism and Moorish invasion of her kingdom in present day Senegal. So I'm going to
Wow.
so my book is going to be 21 African queens because I have to add her. Now that if I hadn't found her before, it would be okay. But
You know what, Nana? You know
yes,
what, Nana? I think you need to link up with Mama Kanyishile. You actually need to link up with her. She's
who's
written
she?
a book. She's one of our sisters. She comes on our platform quite a lot. She's one of us basically. I'll say because she comes on very often now. So I'll say she's part of the family now. And she's
Yes,
written a book, Obulungisa. What's the deconstructing the woman?
Deconstructing gender in African spirituality, the untold story of African warrior women.
Woman. And she
oh
goes
wow,
into it's huge.
yeah,
It's we basically helping her promote the book right now. So that's part of what we're doing. I think you two need to link together, man, because basically I can
yeah,
see synergy in terms of what she has and what you're doing. So
yeah,
that I can see that.
Yeah, that's
And
that's why what you're saying is familiar to us because of
yeah,
that.
because yeah. because we've been talking about this quite a lot. So I just saying it, it's just like it's kind of hitting home. So yeah, we're gonna link you up with her anyway. So I think you can share wisdom with each other and you know just yeah.
It's important that you talk about who has the power to tell the story, right, and what their perspective is. And and I'm not surprised that a queen just came up to you recently, and they're going to keep coming, because that's the same thing Mama Kanyisile said. There are more who keep whispering in her ear, right? There are more who keep coming, because the Western culture made a very intentional and a very well-funded effort to hide our culture and to hide our power. And part of our power was the women, right? The homestead functioning, and the woman was a big part of that. And therefore, to disrupt our homestead, they had to take the woman out, and they couldn't show her in a state of power. So for
Yes.
you,
Yes.
and see, this is a personal question that I'm going to ask in public, and I'm sorry if it hits wrong. Do you have children? Are you a mother?
Oh, you. Yes, I do.
Yes,
I have
yes,
three
yes.
children. I have two boys
Thank
and a
you.
daughter.
So then therefore then the question is perfect then. So how does this feel to you as far as your children and what you're leaving them with? Because that, you say that every young girl should know about, especially, and not just your girls but your boys as well. Oh, you're frozen.
Did you hear the question, Nana?
Yeah.
I think
So,
it's
in
taking,
fact, this book is
it's
dedicated
delayed.
to my daughter. Um,
Wow.
I know it keeps going off, but it's dedicated to my daughter is 14, and I have deliberately brought up a very, very strong young lady. But I understand she's growing a culture that isn't necessarily wanting her to know who she is. So I am very
Mm.
deliberate about teaching her what it means to be African, what it means to have a past, and what the power that gives you knowing who you are. It, you know, so this book is dedicated to her, and she's read it, and the idea is that she knows where she comes from moving forward. That's your foundation. If you don't know where you're
Yeah.
coming from me, I think you float. And there's no roots, and there's no strength in who you are. Because I feel like if you don't know
Mm.
who you are, you don't have your culture, you have a past, there are no roots, and therefore you cannot be your best self to the world. You
Yes.
cannot give your best self to the world, because you still just, where do you belong? Who are you? What's your
Yeah.
story? Right? In a world that tries to hide, that has hidden our story for long, right? You need to have that. So this
Mm.
is very important to me and my children. So they know. I tell them all the time. We have a whole book about my grandparents or my, and things like that. So yeah, very, very, very important in terms of able to have an identity that's quite strong.
Yeah. Very important.
And I was just
Yeah.
looking,
I'm.
I was just looking, right?
Hey, go on.
So I was just saying, I looked at this. This is another lady, Tetu Beto. She was
Is
she
that
was very
the
powerful.
Empress title?
Yes, Tetu Beto. Yeah,
Yes,
she was
thank you.
married to Menelik II, and together with her husband, they did. It was a powerful political union. She was very focused, very strong woman, very powerful woman. And for me, I have to say that the discovery of these queens has been a revelation for me. And
Mm.
I'm so keen that other people know it, and that it gets into
Yeah.
schools. That's why it's called For Every Little Girl. I could have just named it any other thing, 20 African Queens or African Queens, but I wanted it to be for every young girl, because I felt like growing up in school, I should have had this book. This should have been in front of me. So I want young girls coming up in Africa, especially, and around the world, Black girls, to have this book growing up, so that you know where you're from, so you don't believe the story that's being told to you. You have a
Mm.
truth that's yours. So we don't just learn about Queen Elizabeth. I'm thousands of miles away from Queen Elizabeth, but I know her, and I don't know the Senegalese queen till last week. I mean, it doesn't make no sense. It makes no sense at
Yeah.
all. Our African
And
culture needs a
the mess
total overhaul.
And the message they sent with Queen Elizabeth is she's our mother, right? Like all kinds of wrong about the
It's
whole
the
thing,
mothership. It's
right?
the
And and and
even
not telling our
even
people that she is our oppressor. She's
Wow.
literally our oppressor.
oh, okay. uh,
Anyway,
it's
so
it's the mothership. It's the motherland. And so, the way I see it is, if you watch Star Wars, there is a
mm,
mothership. And what the mothership does, it goes out and it conquers lands. And when it conquers lands, the people that is conquered are assimilated, become a part of this empire, and they come to the mothership.
ooh,
And that's what England represents to me, is the empire is the mothership. So
Wow.
it goes and it conquers. And so the people that it has conquered now must come home to the mothership, because that's who we've learned. This is the mother. So we come to the mothership, we come to the motherland. And
Wow.
so it's quite interesting now when I watch people rioting. I'm like, but you are the ship that came. You are the mothership that came. And so we must respond to the mother, to the empire. That's
that
how I
is
see it.
such a great, because I say this all the time when I say they tell us who they are through their movies. Their arrogance cannot keep them from telling us who they are through their movies, even their
Hmm.
dark side. So you have taken Star Wars and taken it to another level for the African mind, to the where it will no longer just be Star Wars. It will be you looking to see the keys and the little what do I call them? Tips of who they are to understand them, because it's important that we understand them. It's important that we understand our oppressors. So thank you so much for taking it there. For me, that I never took it there with the mothership. Thank you so much for that. And you're right.
Yeah.
Yep. Okay, Nana. We're talking about decolonizing our minds. We're talking about our own African stories. We're talking about sharing our own narratives. I know you're writing a book, and I can see what you're doing. And on this platform, mainly what we're doing is trying to open the minds of Africans to actually see ourselves beyond the confines of what they described us as. So my question to you is, how can we push this? What else can we do to get these stories out? Because I know you're a filmmaker. So what else can we do? Because Africa and the diaspora is yearning. As a Nigerian, when I go to Nigeria, most Nigerians don't even know their stories. They don't know their history. Like you said, we have a Western curriculum which teaches about the West, but nothing about Africa.
Mm-hmm.
And when I'm in Nigeria, I feel frustrated and annoyed sometimes when people are telling me things that where I've come from, when I want to hear about my own country. So how do we change? How do we get our stories out there, sis?
As you ask that question, Oladile, I'm thinking that we need to connect her with Utheri so that the book can be provided for the students there.
Oh yeah, I was
Go
thinking
ahead.
that as well. That's
Yeah.
another school in Kenya with that we're partnering with. Yeah, so we're lingo. Don't worry, sis. Carry on.
So, I mean, obviously, my vision is to get this book into the hands of every young girl, especially in Africa. Obviously, every young boy as well, but specifically for the girls. So, I want it to be a history book because, like I said, I wrote it because I thought this is what I would have liked as a young girl going to school. This is what you should be teaching me in my history in my
Yeah,
school, not Queen Elizabeth. So, therefore, the idea is to make sure that this goes into the schools in Africa. That's the vision.
yeah,
And right now we are working with an educator in Nigeria to get the book into the schools there. That's one of our, and then we want it in every school in Africa. So we're trying to get it into Nigeria, and we're also working to get it into Ghana. So that's our two starting points, because that's where we know people who have connections. So we're working
Mm-hmm.
on that. I've just ordered the books. So they're coming next week, and then we're going to DHL it and then just try and do that. The idea is to make it available and accessible to everybody. We have to know our stories, because you see, when you don't know your story, look at us just saying Oladele. We have a
mm,
mindset in Africa that's completely wrong. It's like you always say, I see on your platform, it's colonized. We have a because we don't know our history, because we don't know that we were queens and we were powerful women. I mean, there
mm,
are kings as well, but we were powerful, we were wise, we led, we had vision, we went after trade, we created trade routes, and we built industry. I mean, we were educated, we studied, we learned. We didn't know these things growing up. Why wasn't I taught this growing up? And when you don't know your story growing up, I think
mm.
you have a mindset where because you're taught about the European queen, you thought about everything that's good about the European, you have a mindset where you feel that you are less than, and that
Mm.
person is more than you. And so to change that mindset, and if you look at Africa, a lot of our problems is based on this mindset of us being less than. It's based on this mindset of being colonized. Like we are less than. We didn't know. These people taught
Mm.
us, but actually we did know before they came, right?
Yes.
So we need to change that. That mindset needs to change, and it needs to change. We need to go back to basics, back to the younger generation. We need to raise up a new people, a new generation that look at the world differently, that look at the world with eyes of truth, right?
Mm.
Understanding that you are just as good as anybody else, and that's the starting point. That has to be the starting point. The whole narrative needs to change, and it needs to change from the time children get into school. That the education system in Africa needs to change, especially
Completely.
our history. Especially when it comes to our history, we must teach African history. We must teach African history and African stories.
The
Starting with
more the more you talk about education in my head, and always, it's not just about bringing you on and having a regular interview like the West usually does, right? It's about bringing you on to tell your story, and through your story we find other ways we can connect it to what's happening. And like, as the three of us being together and the community that we have in the chat that is already sending questions, we expand on the conversation beyond where you had reached. So the more you say education and these people were educated and all that, the more I come back to, what do we as Africans, what have we been led to believe education is, right?
Great question.
and
I love
and
that.
and who do we value as far as educated and not educated? Because we have our definition of what education is, but if you can speak to that, please.
Brilliant question. I love
So
that.
that's a good question. Obviously, education is wide and varied in its meanings. It depends on how you're looking at education. I mean, you can look at the Western way of education because the West is built like a machine, I'd say, Western society, and everything has its position and everything has its place. Okay, so we look at, for example, when there's a sociologist called Durkheim, for example, and he talked about how we are we are defined by the roles we play in society. Okay, so you go to school, you get an education, or you're taught to get a role, to be able to play a role in society, because that role is going to keep this machine going. And the thing is that we all have to play that role and we all have to fit into this machine, because if not, the machine is going to break down. So there is a reason for that, for the way that education is taught or provided
Mm.
in the West, and that is also translated into Africa, right? To play a role too. If there's no nurses, the system's going to fail. If you're not trained to be a doctor, it's going to fail. If there are no railway workers, it's going to fail. If there are no cleaners, so everybody has a role that they must play, and be educated to play that role, so that this machine of the world, of the system, can keep going. Now, the thing with Africa, I think, is that we have been educated. Our education system has been created in a way that feeds the empire, or that feeds the people
Yep.
that colonize us. And I think that
Yep.
that's the issue. We haven't created an education system where we are churning out or creating or developing people to build a continent or a system that suits us on our own. I don't think we've done that. And I think that that's where we need to go. And one of the things that's going to do that is decolonizing our mind, which is your theme.
Yep.
You
Decolonizing our mind, which means the
Yes.
information that we're getting and the stories that we're telling have to be the stories that empower us,
Yeah.
the stories that help us to look at ourselves differently. And when we look at ourselves differently and we believe what we see, then we can force others to look at us exactly the way that we see ourselves,
Yeah.
Mm.
right? And we can
Wow.
change the narrative, and we
I
can
have
change
a
how we operate.
I have a problem lately not judging. And sometimes it's just in my head because I know if I bring it out of my mouth, the people that I am with will be upset. But I have a problem lately not judging any black person who has their daughter playing with a white doll. I'm sorry. I like these white princesses that we have our daughters playing with. I have a hard time walking into African homes and seeing young African children playing with them and their parents are okay with it. So please talk to that, because it's important, right? We want your book to move to the point where if we're going to be entertaining a culture of having dolls, let's have those queens be represented in those stores. So please talk to that.
It's about
Yes.
decolonizing the minds, guys. Yep.
So, I mean, with this book, I'll have to say that we want to turn it into films. We want to turn them into an animated series, and I do want to do dolls. I'm trying to reach out. I was trying to reach out to Mattel that does the Barbie dolls to say, "Do you want to do African dolls?" But they didn't do
No, 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 no. Let's make our own. Please don't reach out to them. Let's make our own. They will change the nose, trust me. So don't even reach out to them. Don't even bother to reach out to them. We can do it ourselves, even if it takes 10 years.
Yeah, so yeah, I would like to make the doll definitely because it's just, oh my god, the whole idea of us having dolls. And I would say that, I mean, obviously we grew up with the white dolls, that's what there was. But now you have a choice. There are companies that do
Well,
black dolls.
Yep, there
Now,
are.
if a white, but I'd say that I'm just gonna not be a bit.
go ahead. Step in the mud like I just did. We'll clean
If
our
a black
floor.
Nana,
child,
on the platform, we don't hold back. Say as it is, please.
okay, so if a black child plays with a white doll, I don't think that that's an issue in terms of if the child already knows who they are. If she has something else, if she has other black dolls as well, and she has a surrounding and a culture of knowing who she is if it's in her home where she feels that everything that is a certain color is better than who she is, and that's why she's got a white doll, then you've got a problem. Because in the same vein, you can have a white child with a black doll, but that white child with that black doll is not necessarily saying, I have a black doll because I feel that everything good is black. It's just, I have a black doll because I like this doll. I just like the doll, right? So I think, again, it comes back to all of us, or all the mindset, all our parents, all our homes. And listen, I am a Christian, by the way. I know I've seen something on Oladele's thing where he's not a Christian, etc. But I was brought up a Christian. But I do understand that my God cannot be white.
No.
Because if my God is white, then everything that is high, everything that is good, everything that is pure, everything that is perfect will have to be white. And that would exclude me. So that's why I'm a Christian, but I understand it in the fact that I have to be the God I serve must look like me,
Yes.
right?
Yep.
Maybe, I mean, I'm sure that we had religions or whatever, those are gone, but because they've been wiped out before we got here. But this is what I have, and for me, so the mindset of the family, the home, the government, all of us needs to simply change, I think. Because as a Christian, you grow up saying, okay, your sin is black, and you're gonna be washed white as snow. But this is what white means, this human being, and this is you black. And so your correlation of what is good and pure and right and perfect and smart is white. And everything that's sin and black and dirty is you. And so we have to change all these narratives, and we change it by storytelling. Because if you look at it, it's storytelling that changed our mindsets anyway. It's
Yeah.
the stories they told us, it's the history they brought us. And so now that it's a new time, we have access to this information ourselves. We have access to we are all educated. We can all tell our stories now. We all have the capacity to do so. So we need to do it. We need to change it.
So I will be remiss if I don't point out, because this is the awakening Alkebulan after all,
I knew I
and
was going to
and
open up
and
another
and,
world.
and Kumbukeni, which means let us remember who we are, who
Yeah.
we were. So our faith, our spirituality is not gone. It's been hidden. They've tried to keep it. We cannot give up on it. We
No,
cannot.
it's always there.
We have to go back, Sankofa, like the bird does, reach
Yep.
for it and bring it back.
Bring it back.
And listen, we don't have to go along with the lie that they have told us, because every time you mentioned that the queens are in the Bible, I actually wrote it down. um I said, not surprising.
But remember, it's not just in the New Testament though. It's not just in
I-
Christianity. It's in
it
Judaism.
doesn't matter. It
It's in
doesn't matter.
Judaism.
The whole book is a plagiarizing of African culture. So it
Yes,
doesn't
it
matter whether
is.
it's the old or the new. It is
Yeah.
them taking different narratives and concocting them and putting them in a format that will uphold their interests. So I'm not surprised that the queens are in there, right? Because they were throwing subtle parts of our culture that they can get away with so that they can make the story make sense. I am not surprised at all that they're in there. The thing is, in the Bible, do the queens kill the white people?
No,
Thank you. Exactly.
no. Okay.
Go on.
All right. I've got a question here. Actually, somebody's asking a question here, Nana. This guy's asking the queen from. I'm gonna put it on the chat that you can see it. Can you see it? It says, "Ask Mr. Oguntola to say a bit more about the Queen of Rwanda from Rwanda, a person of whom I'm familiar." Yeah.
Was it Rwanda or Luanda?
Mahumza.
Can you mention the queen's name again?
Mahumza.
And was it
16.
Rwanda or Luanda?
Muhumuza.
No, where she came from. Was it Rwanda or
Rwanda. So
Luanda?
Queen Rwanda. So Queen Muhumuza or Mahumuza was a beautiful wife of Rwandan King Rwabugiri Kijeli IV. Her husband died in 1895 and her son was removed as king in the coup that was staged by another of his wives called Kanjugira. So Kanjugira enthroned her own son, and then Musinga and Mahumza were forced to flee north with her own son. And then she raised an army and organized insurrections aimed at enthroning her son. But she became very powerful. In 1908, the Germans arrested and imprisoned Mahumza for the crime of witchcraft. She escaped in 1911 and rallied her supporters. She started military campaigns against the British and Germans who were trying to take over the region. I mean, colonial governments described her as an extraordinary character. She is remembered for resisting all three colonial powers, the British, the Germans, and Belgians from neighboring Congo.
That
Powerful
is
woman.
that's the area that's currently known as Angola, right?
Well, I'm not sure.
Yeah.
Um,
It's Luwanda is the place, right? Luwanda.
Luanda.
why did you say? Why did I say Rwanda?
Is it Luanda or Rwanda? That's what we're trying to make to confirm
So
which
she,
one it is.
so she's Queen Muhumuza, and she was the wife of the Rwandan king.
Oh, Rwanda.
Okay.
Okay.
The
Okay.
Rwandan king, and she
Okay.
resisted the British, Germans, and Belgians from neighboring Congo as well. And she
Okay.
was kept under house arrest in Kampala until her death in 1945.
Okay. So you're speaking of the land where Kagame now resides.
Yeah, well, her husband was, yeah, I think so. It says Rwanda, king of Rwanda. So,
Okay. Okay. Thank you.
yeah.
Do we
Okay.
have any other questions in the
Let me
chat?
just see if there's any more questions. Give me a second. Give me a second. Guys, has anybody got any questions for Nana before she goes? Any questions? Okay.
Oh, you know what? You did say something that for me, yes, I noted it down. You said something about the way people say to us women, because you come to the West, that's why you're bold. I was going to give a story and then I'm going to ask you to talk about it a little bit more. I was bold back in Africa from when I was a child. My father tells me stories of us being pulled over by police and me yelling at them and telling them when I grow up, I'll be your boss and fire you all, right? Like for these the caucasity to think that African women can only be bold when they come to the West. Like, please speak to it. And it seems obvious. This information seems obvious, but it's not clearly.
I mean, for me, my boldness, I was always just who I am before I got here, long before I got here. But I've seen, especially men who are here, do that. I've seen situations where men say, "Oh, you're only being bold or you're only being strong because you're in the West." And also that idea of um, Western people coming to Africa to say they want to empower our women. They want to sort of, and I'm like, actually, before colonialism and before religion, we had very, very powerful women. And I've met some women who are not, who are powerful, who run a whole village, for example, and people go to them, men and women. So I think, for example, just recently, Michelle Obama, I like Michelle Obama, by the way. Michelle Obama and Bill Gates' wife went to an African country. I can't remember which one now. And they said they were going to empower the woman there or something like that. And I was like, this is not your what you should be doing. Like, this is not your business. Women were already the narrative, the idea that we're waiting for you in the West, that you are so enlightened and so educated and much more wiser than us, that you have to leave what you're doing and all the mess on your side of the country, right? And come over there in order to empower African women. It's a new concept. It's a new story that we have been told. I think that if we know our history and we know these women, what they did, I think we
Freezing.
Oh, that's very unfortunate because she had hit a point there that we must. You know, Oladele, it's funny because and I'm gonna be clear on this so that I do not confuse what I'm saying with anything else. It's funny that the West is very quick to point out the Al Shabaab, ISIS, such and such as terrorist organizations, but they don't look at the Bill Gates Foundation as a terrorist organization, which it is. It literally is terrorizing African lives. I will ask you while we're waiting for Nana to come back in, Oladile. Someone said to me that in Nigeria, the Bill Gates Foundation is what's the word? When you destroy the fertility of women.
Yeah.
You've heard of this?
Yeah, we've got Philippine Jamanze. You know the guy we're trying to bring on the other day.
Yes.
He talked about it. We're trying to, we've got the program coming on the 25th. We're talking about the NGO. I'm
Yes.
gonna try to bring him on as well. He's gonna talk about it, and
Yeah.
it's happening.
And how do you say that this organization that claims to be empowering women, that is doing this, is empowering
But
women, right?
they've never, and I'm gonna say this categorically. The Mzungu in Africa is not empowering Africans at all. They're there to exploit and destroy. So if in your head you think that the white man is coming to help you out and help you on anything, they're not. Please, and this is basically what we do on this platform. We're about decolonizing the minds. Our own solutions as us. No white person with all the goodwill is coming to Africa to save us. Otherwise, with everything that's been coming to Africa for years and centuries, Africa will be a different place. But you see what's happening in Africa right now. Basically, everything's just getting worse. People are getting poorer. The systems are working against us. And the NGOs are there to siphon. They're basically, I call them the agencies of the government. They're basically agencies of the government who come in. All they do is go around the villages. They scour around to see what's going on. They look for information and they pass it back. And then they infiltrate. And that's what NGOs do. So the reason why we're here, basically, guys, it doesn't matter whatever, Bill Gates, whatever, they're not there to save Africa, guys. We Africans are our own solution. Thus far, I'll say it again, with all the NGOs and all their charity, is never empowered. All they do. And you look for the next 2 weeks, we're going to talk about this because we're bringing somebody going to talk about this. I've got guests lined up who are going to be talking about all these things. We're talking about GMO seeds. We're talking about the vaccines, everything that's coming to Africa and how detrimental it is to Africans. So watch out, guys.
Someone.
Can
So
I just
sorry.
quickly say, can I just
Yeah.
quickly say before I went off, was that
Yeah.
religion in Africa has also been a main cause for subjugating women. Christianity,
Absolutely.
obey your husband, and then also Islam is the same thing. So before those religions, I think women were a lot more powerful and a lot more,
Of course, Nana.
So that's another reason why they need to know the book and our minds. And then somebody said, do I find that sometimes brothers put down a black woman? Yes, I do, very much. When last year, the theme for Black History Month was saluting a woman. And saluting a woman, I liked that theme because I felt if you talk to a black man, a woman and a black man, just a normal black man, you will say something and he won't laugh. A white woman comes and says the exact same thing, and they'll be like, teeth open, laughing, laughing. You know, they will open, they will be
Nana,
subservient to the
let's
gentle sound. It's about the mind. It's about what you think something better.
let's try turning off your video. Maybe the audio will be clearer that way. Let's try turning off the video.
You want to turn it off?
And this is because the two of you are shit talking Queen Elizabeth. That's why your internet is not good. That's
Yeah,
why
no,
your internet.
I think you're okay. I think you're okay. Now carry on.
No, it's still,
Wait.
you see it's a delayed
Okay,
image. Yeah, so if you turn off your video, there you go. Okay,
that's it.
let's see how it goes.
So
Yeah,
you didn't
carry
hear
on, sis.
what I said?
No, we didn't. Please
Oh,
repeat
okay. So
it.
no. Oh, yeah. No. So I just said first of all about religion. Obviously, I think religion has been a big aspect in the way that, but also I was just saying, yeah, men in the West, especially the way they treat black women, they are, for me, black men are not a very safe place for black women. They're not everybody is like that, but I think that they're not necessarily, the majority are not a safe place for women, a black woman. I was just saying that, for example, a black man is standing there, a white woman will tell a joke and a black woman will tell a joke. The black man will laugh at the white woman's joke and not laugh at the black woman's joke. He will open the door for the white woman and expect the black woman to just open her own door. Um, if there's a conflict, it's very rare that you see the black man. Oh my gosh, even now in my situation, with my work, I don't want to talk about it. The black man would not come to the aid of the white black woman. He would go on the side of the white person instead of supporting the black woman. We see it all the time. It's really, and it's once again a mindset. Our mindset needs to be decolonized. Just we need to know our stories. We need to know and then begin to change the way we respond in the world, show up in the world. You know.
You already, sorry Oladile, you already have people interested in getting copies to share. There's someone who said, I don't know if you can see it in the chat, how can they get copies, buy copies for a school in Cape Coast, Ghana? So just if you can give us,
Okay, if you can
Oladile,
contact
sorry,
me,
I
that would be
think I muted
amazing.
you again. Just unmute Oladile. There you go, Oladile.
Okay.
Just give us an email for them to reach out to you if they want to buy the books and provide them to schools in Africa, in Sierra Leone.
That I think if I can
Yeah,
copy
put it in the
it.
chat,
Yeah,
then we can copy it.
we'll copy it and put it in there. Yes. And then also, if you want to speak to your event that you have coming up, if you want to promote it for those who are in the United Kingdom or the disunited kingdom, or the criminal enterprise, hey, but go on.
Try coming back on the camera. Let's see your face.
So on the let's just say on the 12th of October 2024, I'm launching the book Queen of Kings. I'll date with you because it was supposed to be the first, but I have my
Mm-hmm.
friend coming. My friend, the first lady of Spain, is coming, and she can only come on the 12th. So we're launching the book on the 12th at 7 p.m. Anybody who can attend, I will give the details anyway because he's going to be speaking at that. And then he can share it with you and you can attend. Yeah.
Yeah, tell us about the events that you also do in Milton Keynes, because you do quite a lot in terms of your community engagements. Tell us a bit more so people can actually reach out and be part of what you're doing.
A lot of events, especially supporting the Black community, because I hate the whole concept of every time this people speak, they say, "Oh, the poor communities," or we have to help these people. We have to help. It's always they want to help the Black people. The Black people are poor, but actually, you're not helping the Black people by putting because you don't actually put the money in my hand. You put the money in the hand of this white agency that you know, and then you expect me to go to this white agency that you know, right? That you've given the money to. Don't give it to the white agency to me, but they don't do that. So my idea is to empower Black people here so that we can make our own money and we don't have to go and sit at the table. You don't have to force yourself to sit at a table just because you feel that people are sitting there. Create your own table, make your own table, and bring your own people to it. So that's what I do. So I do in Milton Keynes the Black Excellence Awards. We had a very successful one in January. My gosh, I do so much here. Last October as well was saluting the women was the theme of Black History Month. So we had 11 Black women that were pioneers that do amazing things in the city, and we have them all over the city. Their statues, their posters in the train station, in the library, and so on the news, on TV, just giving us a platform so that young girls can see something different, can see women in power, can see women like them who are excelling, right? And even just the main community to know that there are women of color who are doing amazing things. I do that. I do a networking breakfast as well, where we educated about money, making money, building wealth, property, because that's it. That's what Beyonce said. You need to have money to respect it. So we need to build wealth amongst us. And I also do business in the markets where I bring small businesses to an outdoor exhibition. Again, just building a platform, building our businesses, building each other. So those are the kind of things I do. Lots of different things. I make films about some of our Black pioneers and Milton Keynes as well. Put them on TV and things like that. So quite a bit. So I don't just talk the talk. I believe it, so I just do it. So
Yeah, good. Yeah, and that's how we met you, my sister. Because I seen you and I see what you're doing, and people I work with told me, "Have you met Nana before?" That Caucasian guys, because she's quite good. I said, you know what, Nana? Yeah, I know who she is. So what you're doing is reaching out there, amongst the Caucasians as well. So they told me about you. So yeah,
yeah.
we got a question there, sis. Is there any truth to African royalty being sold as slaves to destroy our dynasty? Somebody's asking that question. Can you speak to that?
Yes, absolutely. I think so. Absolutely, because do you know when European slavery came, kingdoms were fighting, right? So chiefs are fighting chiefs or whatever, and then they'll capture their slave, their king, they'll capture a land, and they'll sell that person into slavery. But you see, the way they understood slavery was completely different from the way the Europeans practiced slavery. Because when a Ghanaian, when an African captures you as a slave, you become a part. In the end, you could become a part of their household. You could be an advisor to them. You could intermarry, right? You live in their society as part of them. So, but when the Europeans took them, obviously slavery changed in the way that they treated us, or in the way that ended up what. So yeah, they did. For example, I told you about Asantewa, right? The king of Ghana, Prempeh, he was in the Seychelles, and together with a lot of the royal family. I'm trying to get the. I don't think I get the book. So it wasn't just him. A lot of the royal household had been sent off to the Seychelles to break the resistance of the house of the Ashanti Empire, and also obviously to break the dynasty so that they don't have the leaders to lead them. They're not looking at your royal family. You don't have any symbol of who you are, isn't it? And that's what Asante was fighting. And then they took her into exile as well. But in the end, they had to bring the king back on different terms. But yeah, definitely, I think that happened. And then also somebody asked me, did I read Confessions of an Economic Hitman? I did
Yeah.
quite a few years back.
Let me hear your thoughts on that book. But before I hear your thoughts on that book, Barracoon, for the person who's asking whether it's true that royalty was sold, read Barracoon, the story of the last black cargo. It's
Oh,
essentially Zora Neale Hurston telling the story of an enslaved African who was who was brought here to the United States. He told her the story and she wrote it down. So read that, and in the story, he tells of one of the people in the ship was royalty.
yeah,
So yeah, go on.
absolutely.
Yes, I'd like to hear your thoughts about the book.
Powerful book. Absolutely loved it years and years ago. But I tell you something, and I absolutely, it's true. But I tell you something. You see, when I was in the Gambia, I had a film cafe. So just outside our office, people could come and have drinks or snack or something. And we used to have a visitor. He was an Englishman, and in his shorts, and obviously he'd come and sit down. But he was a mercenary for sale, and he
Wow.
was, yeah, and he talked to, and for some reason, because, well, I guess maybe because my husband was British, but he felt very comfortable talking to us. And he was telling us how they were in Zimbabwe, and how they were, they would create wars or conflicts in order to, stir up things, and then people would blame the government or whatever, and how he would be like, they would be in woods, they'd not even be like, they'll be in the jungle or whatever, and then they'll kind of like come out and capture people and things like that. So when he was saying that, it was so relevant to the book, right? Because you know that what they do, what happens is it's underground, it's subtle, it's not overt, covert, and it's just the truth, and we know it. And I think everybody is quite, everybody knows it now. That that's what it is. So.
Yeah.
Saying that, sis, I'll say everybody knows it, but you know what? A lot of Africans don't know these stories. We don't know, because if we knew what they were doing to us, things would change. And we're talking about mindset change. If we knew what really is, what's going on, if we know that, like I said, covertly and overtly, how the infiltration is so deep on our continent, our mindset and attitude would change towards the Mzungus, I'm sorry to say. So yeah, people need to wake up, guys. We're not doing these things for the sake of doing these things. All we're trying to do is just tell our stories and let us know the dangers and challenges we face ahead of us. And once you know your history and you know the pitfalls and things that are working against you, we can turn things around. Because you can never use the solutions of the West to fix Africa's problems. We've been doing that for years. And look and Bill, with all of this so-called development, basically what he's doing is basically putting more people in poverty. And you can see it. A few people will be rich, but the majority are poor. We're about Ubuntu. That is communal development, communal empowerment. This is basically who we are as people. Western systems are not helping us. A few will benefit, but the majority are lacking. And that's basically why we need to change the way we think and change the way we do things, actually, to accommodate and embrace and empower ourselves. And guys, this is why we do what we do.
It's about us. It's about us.
Pardon?
I said, I'm glad
what are you saying, Nana?
That.
Yeah.
I'm just saying, I'm glad you said that. And you said that we need to, because we need to change.
Yeah. Yeah, we do.
What's his name? That's the guy, this Canadian guy that talks a lot. He talks. I've forgotten his name. But he said, this philosopher. Peterson. He said, I am a white man. I am at the head of the table. This is my company. And you're a black man. And you walk into this boardroom and you want me to get up and give you my seat. He said, you can't have it. Right?
Yeah.
So if black people think that they're just going to keep saying, give to me, and you expect people to give you, they're not. You must build your table.
Yes.
You must build your chair. And you must have the mindset that my table is just as good and I can build it.
Yeah.
So we to us to keep expecting the other one to turn around and give, why would they? Why should they?
No, they wouldn't. They wouldn't. They don't intend to anyway, and they've never done it.
Yeah. So we must change, and we must rebuild, and we must re-educate, realign again, and go back to our history, who we were, and then build up again for us, by us.
All right, thanks, sis. I'm just going to ask a question, because what we normally do on the broadcast, we normally ask questions from a previous guest to ask our coming guest. And the last guest left a question for you. And the question from our last guest was, what is anyone doing, or what are you doing to support Africans to develop indigenous Africanness? You can see in the chat though. What are you doing to support Africans to develop indigenous Africanness? Basically, how do you help people develop Ubuntu?
I just wrote a book.
I was about to say.
Great answer. I love that. Yeah, that's the answer. He just wrote a book, and the book is out there. So guys, get the book. I've seen a few people who already ordered the book online. Please get the book. The book is out there. Since we're going to link you up with the Freedom in Children's School in Kenya.
But I also Oladele, if especially if you're doing a movie, I know it's we've been taught in this Western culture, it's none of your business. It's her money; she can do what she wants
Mm,
to do with it. But my advice to you, if you're gonna do a movie, is reach out to Mama Konyisile and collaborate with her on that movie. The two of
please.
you working together is going to make it much more.
It's gonna be powerful, sis. I will link you with Akanyeshile, man. She basically you guys, yeah, it's gonna be awesome.
Okay.
Freedom in Children in Freedom School in Kenya as well. I think that's a school that we can link. I'll link you up with them as well with the owner. So I think they need to get your books in their school as well. So yeah.
Okay.
Okay. Before we go, yeah, go on.
Someone is also saying you support African Central businesses. If you want to talk about that, since the question is what do you do?
Do I support African businesses?
Someone said that you do.
She supports African Central businesses too. There's somebody that's money saying that.
Is that you mean African centered businesses?
No, she said money was saying that you support African Central businesses too. So somebody's saying that you do support African Central businesses.
Okay. I guess
Yeah.
so. I guess
Yeah.
by what I guess by the markets. And I have a big exhibition as well, by the way. If you're in
There you
business,
go.
if you do
There you go.
if you're in business, if you have your own business, products, services, you want to promote it. The exhibition is on the 12th and 13th of October. It's for 2 days. It's in the middle of the city center. So you already got an automatic footfall of 1,000, at least 1,000 people coming through. And then there's going to be 100 businesses on exhibiting. So bring your products and services, join in. There's
Mm,
networking. There's going to be talks, panel discussions, obviously entertainment as well. There's going to be food, drink, fun whilst doing business. But it's an opportunity to build our platform, to build our wealth, to grow our businesses as well. So you can take advantage of that as well. So yeah.
brilliant. Also, Nana's going to be launching a book. She just said the book is going to be launched in on the 12th of October. You said, Narcis. So the dates change. Okay.
Yes.
And it's basically African History Month as well, which African History Month in a particular month, it doesn't sit well with me, but we take what we have. So,
You know what? I
yeah,
understand that.
yeah,
Black history is every day, right?
yeah,
And that's why we do what we do. That's why I do what I do. I'm doing something every
yeah,
month anyway around
yeah,
my culture.
yeah, yeah, yeah,
Because that's me. But
yeah,
I also take opportunity because okay, this is what they've given you. Take it,
yeah,
and then
yeah, yeah,
get a podium, raise it as high as you can, get
yeah,
the
yeah,
biggest mic, make the loudest noise. It doesn't matter, and
yeah,
then amplify that. Use that to
yeah,
amplify your voice, and then build on it right through the year, all the time. So for me, if it's given, I'm taking it. In the meantime,
yeah.
we continue to do what we do. That's how I
Yeah,
see it.
and that's why I appreciate you, my sister. Seriously, that's why I appreciate you because I appreciate what you're doing. So yeah, Black History Month. She's gonna be launching the book. I'm gonna be talking, so it's gonna be fun.
Can
So
I
yeah,
can I quickly, I know this is not about the book, but again, everything we do is related. And because the two of you are in the UK and given what has been happening there, that is still happening there, can you please both talk about it? And because you support the Black community there, just let those who are not aware know what is happening in the United Kingdom right now. I know, Nana, you mentioned you went by it quickly before, but please speak to it.
All right. So basically, a young 17-year-old Rwandan by descent, but he was born here. 17, so he's a child. Well, almost 18. He went to a school and he killed some children, 3 children, and used it really a terrible assault, really, to be honest. And before we could even that's the thing that's upsetting about it. Before we could think about it, before we could process the information, before the family, the community, the nation could come together to mourn this event, to say what is going on, find answers, people decided to go on a riot. They said the first thing they said was he's a Muslim. What does that matter, first of all? And it turned out he wasn't a Muslim, he's a Christian boy, Black African. And so it racist, basically just racist riots. It's the foreigners that's doing this. Forgetting that just 2 weeks ago or 2 months ago, a black boy was killed by a white man with a cutlass. Nobody went out rioting because you understand that it wasn't the race, it wasn't the whole people that went out and killed this boy. It was one man. And yet one boy does this and you go on a riot saying it's all the foreigners. Really terrible. Really, really, really terrible. And so for me, as because I am also a city councillor, so I had to make a statement. I did make a statement in the press to say, that I condemn, because somebody has to speak up. We can't say, oh, it's not happening, or it's not happening here, and so I won't say anything. I have to speak up. My voice must count in things like this. Because what's the point of being at the table if you just want to belong and not make a difference, right? So I did put out a statement to say that this is a terrible thing to happen, and we have to be careful because it's the rhetoric. It's not a one-off happening. It's the rhetoric of the society, of the way people speak, of the leaders. Because just a few weeks ago, I was having a big argument on Facebook where someone was saying the foreigners make their ears dirty and they hear all these foreign languages, and I had to have a go at them saying, "But if you didn't come to my country, I wouldn't be here." You know.
Clearly, they don't
So,
know the history of London and how disgusting it was.
well, the thing is, if they didn't leave this mothership and go to other countries, we wouldn't be here,
For no reason, right?
Yeah.
right? So they came first, and so you can't turn around now and say we don't want you here. Most of us are contributing positively to the communities where we live. So yeah, but I think the most of the people came out again. The anti-racists or whatever came
Yeah.
out and,
They came to support.
man, they showed some power that I think everybody just backed away,
Yeah.
just got scared. Yeah.
Yeah. I think
So that
the guys who supported the whole community, I think that kind of quenched it a little bit. It's basically dampened it down now. So yeah, it's kind of, yeah. Obviously, it's still there, but yeah,
Because
it's
I,
it's
I
kind
like I like
there are more good people than there are bad people.
yeah,
There are more good people everywhere.
So here we go. I like to speak clearly so that our people are not lost in the language that we use to be politically correct. We're talking about Wazungu who got upset and got in the streets and started attacking our people because one of our people killed children who were Wazungu. And then you're saying that Wazungu who are good came out and told the crazy Wazungus to stop what they were doing.
yeah, yeah.
All
It's
right.
basically anti-racist rally, basically. So yeah, so that kind of helped quench the tension. And these the people, when they saw that white people, the majority white, coming to support, I think it helps a little bit. Obviously, the scars are still there for people who've gone through the torture, because I saw a video where a Nigerian guy was actually who works at a care home. He went in to help people, and he came out. His car was torched. Basically, his car was actually burnt to ruins. So there's so many stories like that. So it leaves a scar in people's minds, thinking, in this country, why am I being put through this?
Yeah, but
But
you
for
see the guy who lost his car, they raised more than 20,000 pounds for him to get a new car.
yeah, and we a lot of us, like Nana. I was born in this country. I've been through, and we've been through a lot in this country. And
Yeah.
all I say to people is, it doesn't matter what we do and what we try. Let's build Africa.
Yeah.
Let's
Nana,
build
could
Africa.
you could you please say some more about what you just said so that they know where to reach for that financial support to get um, his vehicle replaced and anyone else who has their property damaged?
Yeah, I mean, I didn't do it. I just saw it on social media that they had
Yeah,
raised 20,000 pounds for him to get his
yeah,
car in 24 hours. People had set up a GoFundMe or whatever to help him out, and he raised. They said they raised some money for him. Yeah.
Good, good.
Okay, let's run this up. Nana, we just need a question for you from you for our next guest, please.
Who's your next guest?
We don't know.
We never tell. Top secret.
Huh?
We never tell so that it does not influence your question. We want it to be organic.
I tell you something. Um, I don't know if you know, but I'm doing my doctorate, and it's looking at AI. One of the things I'm looking at is AI in filmmaking and in filmmaking education. So what I'd like to know, and one of the things I found is there's very few of us in the sector, very few of us, and once again, Black people, if we are not doing our best to be at the forefront of things like this, we're going to always be left behind. We're going to keep saying we're not present because the images right now that they're making, they don't focus on us. Um, but if unless we're in there and actively, so my question is, um, how do you see Black people, African people take more of a proactive step in the AI space? How would they? How can they? Should they? what can we do to take a proactive step? And by the way, if you've seen the book, my book, it's all illustrated by AI. I told you that, right?
Yeah, yeah,
You,
yeah.
you
And Nduku's got something to say about that.
are you sure you want to hear my opinion about that?
You see
Yeah,
the
tell
black
me
people.
your opinion.
Oh my goodness. Nana, I love you. This is not about you. Please do not take it as an attack on you. It's an attack on the AI, right? I could tell it was AI because of the western facing noses of all our queens. None of them had a wide nose.
Zingaban.
She's not about to say.
No, listen.
But
No, do you know? I actually tried this book. This book has been in the works for like more than 3 years, and I did get someone else to try and illustrate it. A person. Um, that was the worst. Look at Amina.
listen. Let me know. I'll hook you up. We have a brother in Uganda who's doing Mama Kanyisile's book, and the picture he did of and we went back and forth, right? Because this is how we've been trained. We've been trained in English schools, and therefore you're told this is how to draw and all that. But then because of who Mama Kanyisile is, she kept going back and saying no. Those noses, list no. The faces, no. The cheekbones, no. And so the image he finally came with, and a variety, and we're not saying that Africans did not have slender noses or do not have them. We have them. But the variety ended up having women that at one point I had the image behind me and she said I looked like them. So yes, so yes. I'm sorry, but
Yeah,
yeah, that's my problem with AI, because it has Wazungu making it, and therefore even when I generate things with AI, I have to be very specific. I have to
yeah,
say to it, I say to the AI when I generate things, go back to Africa before the invasion by the adversarial entities. Like, I'm very specific. Go back to Africa before it was invaded by white people. I say, give me this, but make sure you intentionally exclude white bias. I don't play with AI. I'm like, I know who designed you, but I'm gonna tell you right now, whatever answer you give me, it better not have your bias. So yes.
yeah.
Okay,
I mean,
thanks for that. Yeah, go
the
on.
Egyptian, when I just put the names of the Egyptian queens, all three out of the four queens came back as white. So I had to go
Mm,
back and say no, I want black queens. But
wow.
there we are.
And you know,
Yeah.
Sheikh Anta Diop, right, has done the work on that.
Oh yeah.
Sheikh
All
Anta
right.
Diop.
Yes, yes,
Yeah,
yes.
yeah.
Yeah.
So
Right.
that's another place for you to go to as you
That's
continue
a
to
book
do
you
your
need to
work.
read, sis.
Have to do.
That book is phenomenal.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
No. Thank you for what you're doing. All the best. Let me know. I'll hook you up to the brother in Uganda. He can do your drawings moving
Maybe
forward.
the new version. Maybe the next version.
I was about to say. I was about to say yes. Yes.
Okay,
Yes.
thank you, Nana.
Having me.
Thanks, thanks our community for being part of the Alkebulan Awakening series in conjunction with Kumbukeni. Like always, it's about decolonizing the minds, having our own conversations, saying our own stories, and nobody's gonna do this for us but us. And we have to do it ourselves, guys. And this is why we're here. So I hope you've learned something today. And the next one's coming in the next 2 weeks. It's going to be explosive and very, 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 very insightful and very educational. A lot of things you guys don't know about what's happening in Africa. A lot is going to come to the fore. Just look out 2 weeks time. It's going to be a very good one. So thanks, guys. We'll see you soon. Nduku, thank you very much. Nana,
Yeah.
thank you. And my people, Odigbakono,
Peace.
see you later.